Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. We're glad you're here. Subscribe to this channel and hit the like button.
Yep. Check out a little thing we got going called a podcast down below in the description. Need you to subscribe to that. Need you to share it with some friends and potentially even share it with your enemies.
Definitely. And check out buckmason.com/ham1 for 15% off awesome Buck Mason gear when you order at least $100 of merch.
Do it.
All right, John. 49ers, state of the franchise. Greg Papa, Brandon Aiyuk, Juwan Jennings, who, if you're watching this, watch Juwan Jennings' face in this video as well, talking about Trey Lance.
Working with him, Brandon, tell me what you've seen from him.
I've seen a whole lot from him, especially since we started this all-season program, just seeing how much he's grown, just seeing him just throw the football, lead in the locker room, connect with guys. We have a special quarterback.
Honey?
What do you think?
Juwan Jennings is a massive human being, first and foremost. Two, I think it's, if you follow, I follow both of them on social media, Aiyuk and Trey Lance, like, they spend a lot of time together. And it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, they were drafted back-to-back years, so they're similar ages. And, you know, I don't know if I would consider when Aiyuk was picked, you know, his rookie season, Jimmy missed 10 games, so it's not like he developed this special relationship with the guy. I mean, I know this year he had a slow to get going and ultimately had a good season, and they had some moments. I mean, Aiyuk had a walk-off touchdown on the road. I mean, that's, you could have a 10-year career and never have that happen. So that's a big moment to have. So Jimmy was not afraid to throw him the football. But it's just one of those things. I think you kind of gravitate. I mean, Jimmy's 30 years old, and the other guy is basically your draft mate within 12 months and clearly going to be the franchise quarterback, and you're trying to be a star wide receiver. I'm not saying it's predictable, but I would say when you just get two nice guys, aren't those guys going to end up being close in this situation? You could put them in any of the 32 teams.
I saw Draymond Green on Wednesday. I think it was his Wednesday press conference. He told a story about Bob Myers walking by him and Steph and Clay on the team plane. They were all sitting at the same table. And Bob Myers said to them, it's pretty crazy to see you guys for the last 10 years. You three guys have been sitting at the same table together. It's rare to have three guys on the same team together for 10 years, let alone for their relationship to be able to maintain, you know, all the things that change over the course of 10 years, especially when you're a professional athlete. You get richer, you have families. It's easy for guys to grow apart. I think who you are friends with when you're young, generally those are some of your strongest bonds, right? You hear people say like it's harder to make friends as an adult. And I think it definitely applies in sports. When like you come in with guys, you hear I've heard players say, I played in the pros. My best friends are college teammates. But when you are kind of the same age, kind of in the same boat, right? Yeah, we're rich and yeah, we're famous, but hopefully in 5 years we'll be richer and we'll have succeeded more. And obviously Aiyuk and Trey are not in the same position because Trey did not play as much as Brandon Aiyuk has played. But I think it's pretty clear pretty quickly to Brandon Aiyuk, well, if I'm going to have the career I want to have, if I'm going to eventually have, you know, the contract I want to have, it's going to be about my ability to play with this guy because this guy is the quarterback. And it was interesting, too, in the sense that, like, last year, Aiyuk did not have the easiest season, at least not to start. He had adversity to deal with. Trey had adversity to deal with. I think about what Kyle Juszczyk said to us last summer when he was talking about how much he loves Aiyuk and how much Aiyuk, just if he had a vet around him, how helpful that would be to him. Or maybe, was that after the Super Bowl year? No, that was last year. Juszczyk said that to us. And what a big Aiyuk fan he is. But I think Aiyuk has kind of transitioned now from the young guy, even though he's not old, he is a little bit of, he's by default one of the team leaders when you just think about who the most productive players are and the most important players on the team. And well, Trey Lance is a very important part of, you know, his ability to kind of show the ropes to a young guy.
Well, when I forced you to get into that press conference with me and put on our Big J hats, and we had Kyle and we talked about the receivers and asked him about Juwan Jennings, and then he spoke a couple different times about BA as well with Juwan Jennings. What do you think it's random that those two guys came up on stage together? Like the excitement Kyle has for these two guys and the maturity they have and the focus they have is extremely high. Like you and I saw it firsthand. Kyle was 10 feet away from us. The look he got on his face when he talked about both these guys. And clearly they're close when you watch them at practice. Now, again, 7-on-7 drills or whatever, they dominated together against the starting defensive secondary. Several guys have started in Super Bowls, Jimmy Ward, Charvarius Ward. But I think that you just get these two guys being very good friends with their quarterback is a good thing. Now, I would say that Devontae and Aaron are still clearly, I mean, they're posting pictures of them playing to golf. I would say their relationship's still pretty strong, even though they had divorce might be strong. I mean, Devontae Adams demanded to leave. I mean, that's not a divorce, especially when your quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. I would say, though, the relationship, did you see a headline, we're recording this on Thursday, of Patrick Mahomes saying, like, I was a little surprised of Tyreek Hill's. Like, what the hell, bro? Like, what is that? And I think historically that relationship can get weird over time. I would say that they're all in kind of the honeymoon phase, except the best guy of the group who's not sitting with them, who's wasn't a holdout, wanted to trade. Now he's back, clearly not going anywhere. But like the relationship with him and the quarterback, especially if you're going to give this guy a ton of money to make him happy, is much more, I would say, of a conversation and an unknown than it's clear. These two guys like him. They've worked with him. They're friends. They hang out. They Instagram together. I have zero qualms, questions, uncertainties about their friendship. And when you're friends with someone as a quarterback and wide receiver, you're going to work hard to get good. 19 to me is, I wouldn't say it's a question mark, but it is an unknown. Just how are they vibing? The good thing is we saw at practice is like those guys vibe with 19. So it'd be hard to like, he wouldn't have a choice.
Debo, right? We saw Aiyuk say a few weeks ago, they were FaceTiming Debo before he showed up, just trying to, Debo's a pretty positive person.
Wasn't he playing catch when we were there with Juwan too?
Yeah,
like
they were screwing around. But again, I think you brought up Tyreek, not again, you brought up Tyreek. It's a good example of that is the most important relationship ultimately. Not receiver with receiver is largely irrelevant. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not largely irrelevant. The most relevant is quarterback and receiver. And ultimately, Debo's going to be the guy they spend a lot of money on. So his relationship is going to be.
But I think you're onto something. Because remember Odell Beckham when he got to the Rams and all the Cleveland wide receivers, like, we love the guy. We didn't want him to leave.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily irrelevant.
No, it's not irrelevant.
No, right. Excuse me. I think, but it ultimately doesn't impact how the guy plays.
Getting him the football is what his relationship is built on with the quarterback, right? My point on bringing Tyreek back was Tyreek's relationship with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid was mostly dependent on whether or not they gave him the ball and not so much about did they have good conversation, right?
Yeah.
You guys give me the ball. That's what this relationship is based on. Because ultimately, Debo's going to want another contract. That's the contract Devontae just got. That's the contract Tyreek just got, right? Those are the third contracts for those two guys.
Yeah.
So it doesn't end when you get paid the first time.
Diggs too. I think Diggs just got a third contract. Wide receivers, you might not make quarterback money, but you can make a lot of money in the NFL.
Well, and this is part of being pro sports. It's like it doesn't matter to me, right? The professionals, like, doesn't matter to me if I like you or not. Do you get me the ball? Do you help me win? If you help me win, then I like you. If you don't, then I don't. Because I'm me. I'm my own team. I'm team me. Right.
This also to me adds to the pressure of a young quarterback. Like ultimately, Trevor Lawrence is throwing to Laviska and overpaid Christian Kirk. Right. Even Zach Wilson. It's like Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, young players that every team would take, but they're unproven. Like we got a pretty good idea. Like Brandon Aiyuk can play. Debo is a star. Juwan Jennings. We saw him at the end of the year. Like, holy shit, what is this? I mean, these guys, I think I tweeted this, or maybe I think I tweeted it when I was drinking over the weekend. Like, I think these guys, maybe I Instagrammed it. These guys have a very good chance to be a top 5 unit, the three of them in the NFL. I don't mean there are better wide receivers than Debo. I'm talking about the three guys.
Yeah.
Like, find me a better three guys. They have an opportunity, I guess, ultimately to be a top 5 unit, those three guys in the league if they stay healthy. I truly believe that. I'm not just trying to be biased because I've watched them play or I'm rooting for them to do well. Like it's pretty clear. Like Aiyuk could be a 80 catch guy with ease. Debo's already a star. And Juwan Jennings, if that's your third wide receiver, guy that had made winning plays in the playoffs, in playoff game, basically week 18, like dominated. I just look around the league, guy. I mean, obviously the Bengals, I mean, there are some teams, but how many teams would die to have that as your 1, 2, 3?
I think
because Aiyuk's a fantastic too.
Well, and he had, as it turned out, he had the year. I think you go back to last year, and I thought coming into the year that, you know, if Trey Lance was going to play, he was in the best position of all these rookie quarterbacks to play. And then Aiyuk got off to a slow start. When it was all said and done, Brandon Aiyuk looks better today than he did 365 days ago. Yes. Even though his production wasn't as big, maybe ultimately as we thought, I think you feel like you can rely on him even more than you realized. Juwan Jennings emerged, and Debo had one of the greatest years we've ever seen, unique years we've ever seen. And so I think it's like, this is why everything they do now for the next few years comes back to Trey Lance. They trade a lot for him. He's the quarterback. All that stuff's obvious. So everything else they do is about helping Trey Lance. So anytime when you spend money on Debo Samuel, that's spending money on Trey Lance. When you spend money on Trent Williams, that's spending money on Trey Lance. When you spend money, who knows what happened? Let's say things are going well. In a few years, they have to pay Juwan Jennings. Do they do it? Maybe. That's spending money. All of these things are spending money on Trey Lance. What the Raiders just did for Devontae Adams, that's spending money on Derek Carr. Like, it all comes back, especially with offensive players, to offensive line spending, to talent at receiver. It all comes back to spending money on Trey Lance.
And to me, part of
sorry, John, one last point. And then you get to a point where you pay Patrick Mahomes all this money. Now you're paying other people less because your quarterback is the guy that's supposed to elevate them. But for right now, these guys are supposed to elevate the young quarterback.
For sure. And part of, to me, as you make decisions on who to pay and who not at positions, at, you know, skill guys, not your quarterback, it's like, ultimately, let's look at the Chargers. If Keenan Allen gets hurt, Mike Williams can be your number one wide receiver for a short period of time, right? If Devontae Adams goes down, they extended Hunter Renfrow last week. Like, obviously, Hunter Renfrow's not a number one wide receiver, but we've seen him catch 90-plus balls in a season. Like, if you had to rely on Hunter Renfrow to really take care of you, can he catch 22 balls in a 2-week stretch if Devontae rolls an ankle? Hell yeah, he can. And to me, that's where Aiyuk falls in, where it's like, if Debo rolls an ankle and misses 3 weeks, can Aiyuk have 34 catches with Kittle and be like your 1-2 punch with him? Yeah. And now I think this goes back to the pressure on the quarterback, because they have invested in the skill guys with just Debo and Aiyuk. I wouldn't say got lucky, but, you know, they struck oil a little bit with a 7th-round pick being potentially as good as Juwan Jennings.
Yeah.
And that's part of, you know, you need some luck. Like, ultimately, Belichick once upon a time drafted this little quarterback from Toledo who turned out to be, you know, a guy who eventually became a Super Bowl MVP as a slot receiver. So, not that Belichick didn't like him, but he did draft him in the 7th round. If he was beloved, they would have drafted him in the 3rd, right? I mean, it's like, you could say, hey, we really like this guy coming out, but it's like, you weren't willing to overpay for it. That's for sure. You had a price point and you stuck to it, which is what makes this fun. But ultimately, Debo and Aiyuk, you add up their draft spots, you divide it by 2, it equals like 31, right? I mean, they've invested heavily in those two guys. Yes.
Yeah. They're supposed to be really good and really expensive.
36, 27. Yeah. I mean, it would be about 31 or 32. Which you get credit for.
And, you know, in wide receiver drafts too.
Exactly. So there's like, that's why Howie gets crushed, because he took Jalen Reagor in a group of like so many other, the Justin Jeffersons, the Aiyuks, the Debos, you when you get the wrong guy, it's like, wait, we could have had T. Higgins or Michael Thomas, you know, because there are all these guys now the last several years. I know I'm mixing drafts, but my ultimate point is why we've really been doing it on wide receivers over the last 3 or 4 years. It's because each draft has like 7 of them that you wouldn't even be mad if you had. I was like, you know, I'm not the biggest T. Higgins guy. And then by the season ended, I was like, T. Higgins is a stud. What a pick.
Yeah.
You know?
And what it shows is these are guys you drafted. Specifically, you chose this person as opposed to, we need a receiver, let's just grab somebody. Those drafts happen too, right?
Yeah.
That's not these situations. These situations are, all right, there's a bunch of guys to pick from, like you said, T. Higgins or whoever. I mean, the Aiyuk draft.
Aiyuk could have had T Higgins and him were kind of right in the same little area, right?
I guess if you really get, I mean, they could have gotten CeeDee Lamb if they wanted to, right? In that draft. They end up moving back
with the pick, with the pick that
the DeForest Buckner trade.
To me, I mean, ultimately, now these guys went a lot later than him, same round, but at the end of the round, like ultimately they chose Deebo Samuel over AJ Brown or DK Metcalf. Like that's when you just say those three names. I mean, when the summer ends, they could all be worth combined $150 million or something, right? So it's like it's a great group.
Why not more than that?
Well, I'm talking just pure guarantees. Like you just did like 50, 50, 50. I'm just picked an even, 50 is an even number. That it's a fantastic group of three players that are just truly impact stars. But the Niners, like specifically, like if they had a wide receiver board, they were interested in wide receivers. They clearly had Deebo above those two guys. And let's just say Deebo had turned out to be Jalen Reagor. We'd be crushing them for passing on those two guys when they took a wide receiver, right?
Would it be interesting, too, if you said, Kyle, why did you have this guy, Deebo, ahead of those two guys? And he said his ability to carry the ball.
Yeah, I would guess he'd probably be less. Don't you think he'd just be versatility?
Yeah, or versatility. That's a good way of putting it, too. Yeah. Because at the time,
he might say that after they signed the contract.
Well, also at the time, it wasn't DK didn't make a lot of sense at the time when it looked like Jimmy Garoppolo might be your quarterback for the next 6 years, right?
Yeah, AJ Brown and Jimmy would have been a good match. It feels like, right? Big catching radius.
Not although really DK has, I mean, you could argue just throw it up to DK, he'll go get it too.
Yeah,
I've seen DK.
I don't think anyone would have complained. I don't think anyone would have complained with either.
I've seen DK just catch and run, John. That works as well. You can throw him a bubble screen,
With Jimmy, I mean, I'm looking right now. Deebo's last season, this is what's weird. If I say a wide receiver has 1,400 yards, you'd be like, yeah, he caught 103 balls. Deebo had 77 catches and 1,400 yards. So him and Jimmy made a living out of quick screens, right? Or quick slants.
Yeah.
Well, Deebo made a living then running.
I saw on my timeline the Bears game, 3rd and 13, Deebo. I mean, who on 3rd and 13 runs a receiver screen, but
took it to the house, right?
Took it to the house.
They were going to lose that game.
Yes, they were. That was the point of the tweet.